Good afternoon. It must be 12 o'clock on the East Coast because it's time for Hardison's Tips. I'm your host, Brandon Hardison, president of Champion Strategies, and each Wednesday during my lunchtime, I send my students out to lunch, but I try to bring in some experts that are in the field to help you out. We've had people representing service. We've had people representing BDC. We've had people representing some of the best with the sales process. But we wanted to do something a little bit different for today. So I hope there's some managers listening or want to be managers, because today we're going to talk about, as HR, Human Resource, calls it, human capital. Yes, people. And we're honored to have with us Joe Lockhart. Now, his father, Craig, I've been knowing for a while, but they have a company that has been going and going. Competition's been coming, and they're still on top of their game, and that is AutoMax. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Brandon. Pleasure to be here, and pleasure to meet you. And I'm looking forward. I love that word, human capital. That's a mouthful, and I think it kind of helps decommoditize our recruiting efforts and the human beings that we're actually placing in dealerships. I like that.
Excellent. So before I ask the first question, I know you've been around over 23 years, and like I said, you've had competitors come and go. What gives your organization the stick-to-itiveness to still be around and dealers still want your services and the other ones go to the wayside? Is you got some special sauce, and if you don't want to share it, you don't have to share it?
No, I'll share, but it's real easy. It's human capital. It's the same thing that we preach for our dealerships. We're not going to sit here and talk about, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this without doing it ourselves. So most of our internal staff, I'd say probably 90% of our internal staff has been with the company anywhere from 10 to all the way out to 23 years. We very careful with our hiring. We hire for personality and culture and all that good stuff to make sure they align with who we are as human beings, instead of just looking at a resume and saying, yeah, you kind of fit the bill. And then obviously acclimate them to our culture and make sure they feel like they're a part of something special. And I think, everyone talks about your first actual customer are your employees. So I try to treat it that way myself as a leader, and make sure all our people feel good about what they're doing and the people that they're helping, conversely, as they, place people at various dealerships throughout the country.
Outstanding. Now, before I get to the first question, there's one gentleman that was a tremendous hire because he's out there blowing it up. His name is Anthony. I don't want to mess up his last name. Is it Santangelo?
Anthony Santangelo?
Boy, he's a beast. He's all over the social network. So, man, he's letting people know that he represents AutoMax. So how'd you find him?
Anthony, he's a wild man. He works his butt off, man. So, Anthony came to us. That was just, we were looking for some new recruiter trainers. He came from the automotive industry. Obviously, he worked in a dealership, didn't want to, put in the dealership hours anymore, and wanted to kind of go out on his own. All of our on-site recruiter trainers are all independent contractors, so it gives them that freedom to kind of go out and do their thing and build their own business. And Anthony will tell you himself, you spoke to the social media side of it, that was all intentional and worked on. That doesn't come naturally to him. He flat out hated Facebook and the social media platforms when he first started. And that starts with my dad's training. I know you and I are going to talk about training a little bit here, and I know it's obviously something very near and dear to your heart, where it doesn't matter how well you recruit if you're not helping along the way and hitting those mile markers 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, a year, and really instilling your culture and the things that that individual needs to do to be successful, then they're not going to be successful. So he took to heart the lessons that my dad, gave to him about social media and really reinventing yourself and letting people know who you are and being proud of who you are. And that's what Anthony does. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's nonstop, and he's passionate about it. And it comes through not just on social media, but when he's in a dealership and when he's talking to new hires, they feel it, and the results speak for themselves.
Outstanding. So let's get to it.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, as we both sit, in your opinion, what is currently the biggest recruiting need within the automotive industry?
Sure. Techs, and more techs. It's probably become about 50% of our overall business flow anymore is recruiting technicians nationwide. We're probably in about 60 to 70 rooftops right now looking for techs. And it's normally at that kind of AB level. Most dealerships want some level of experience, a couple years experience. But we are seeing some dealers that kind of get the big picture of, yeah, those are nice to have, and you need your A players, but you need that farm system too. So I see a lot of dealers bringing along apprentice techs and kind of having them shadow some of the senior techs and start them at the bottom, hire for the right type of person again, and mold them into what you need them to be. But yeah, the demand's not going anywhere on the fixed side in regard to technicians. And part of that's also that the labor pool gets a little depleted and is going to keep getting more depleted as younger kids aren't going to trade schools as much, aren't really exploring that career. So I think now more than ever, it becomes important to groom your own technicians instead of just trying to go out and pluck them from another store or from an unemployment field. Obviously, we're in a unique situation here because of COVID. There has been some reshuffling, and there have been some individuals available that aren't normally available. But I think you still need to be proactive in that search. You can't just throw an ad up and wait for these types of technicians to come to you. It's not going to happen. That's a small fraction of what we do when we recruit technicians. We're actually bringing the opportunity to them. And what we found is if you put it right under their nose, they might not be actively looking, but if you say, hey, here's who we are as a dealership, here's what we're offering, here's what we're all about, they'll listen and they'll hear you out and hear what you have to say and consider making that change or joining your organization.
Outstanding. Now, on that, I know because you said text.
Yeah.
There's an organization where I know the gentleman who runs it, but Richie Bello has an institute where he deals with veterans. What's your success with people who already work on mechanical issues transitioning into technicians in the automotive industry?
Absolutely. Very high. When we can get clients to listen and understand that, hey, just because he doesn't have his Chrysler level 3 certification doesn't mean he's not going to be able to come in and do these things. It's going to take him, sitting down and going through the classes and doing the training, but he already has the aptitude and the know-how. You speak specifically to veterans. We've seen great success placing veterans, not just for technicians, but in a sales role as well, in an entry-level sales role. I mean, you talk about, we'll see a resume for a technician and they've done a couple tours and, they've been in the line of fire working on Humvees, working on Jeeps. It's like, guys, he might not have his Chrysler level 3. This guy's, fixed a transmission with people shooting at him. I think he can come into your garage and learn a few things. He might be worth taking a look at. So we're all about it.
Excellent. And just still sticking with that, you did touch on many school systems are eliminating the vocational out of that, or maybe there's not enough independent vocationals in certain markets. So that's why you were saying that one of your advice is to start grooming your own people.
Yeah, and something that I've heard from dealerships as well, and some of our service managers, the quality of the education that they're getting at some of the trade schools, they feel doesn't really translate to what they need these guys to come in and be able to do. So if we're accepting that and we're accepting the fact that there is a smaller labor pool of ready plug and play technicians, let's go out there and let's find people like you're talking about that are maybe mechanically inclined, grew up around cars, might, have a general interest in automobiles and working on cars. And, you put them you do an apprentice program, you put them with a senior tech, you give that senior tech another couple dollars an hour, whatever it may be. And they shadow them and they learn from the inside. And now you're able to hire not just for a resume and for certifications. You're able to hire for someone who matches your culture and is going to be, mesh well in your service department, not cause problems down the road. And you can mold them into whatever you want them to be as far as what skill set you want to implement in them and what you want to teach them.
I like that. Now, we talked about your longevity, and I know Jersey is where you started.
Mm-hmm.
Have AutoMax at any time tried to go to a local school board or district and explain that the money that you can make as a technician is going to be far and a lot better than them just flipping some burgers? Not to knock people who do that, but
sure,
boy, if they just had some experience. But have you tried doing anything with the local school systems or anything?
So we haven't at the high school level. We have tried with oh man, what's the name? What's the big tech school? I'm drawing a blank on the name of the school. Is it UTI?
UTI. Uh-huh.
So we tried several years back and said, look, we have so many openings. This isn't a pitch. The graduates aren't going to have to pay us a dime. Yes, we're a recruiting company. Yes, we get contracted by the dealerships and they do pay us for the hires, but the need is just astronomical. Let us help you place these guys. And frankly, there wasn't a whole lot of interest, to be honest with you. We didn't get very far with it. I certainly would encourage all dealers to attempt to do the same. I think a lot of times those schools kind of get intimidated or worried about a middleman, for lack of a better word. And look, at the end of the day, we are a recruiting company, and some of these inefficiencies are why we exist and why we've been around for 23 years. But we just want to see things improve. It isn't, everyone will go to the sales side of it and you talk about the turnover in the industry and people are like, well, that's great for you, right? It's like, it's not great for us. We don't want to see that. We want clients to have to hire one or two through the course of the year, not 5 or 10, and they lose them all in a month. We want to provide quality candidates that solve problems for that dealership. And it's the same thing with techs. And if it means the dealership doesn't use us and they do build those relationships with local trade schools or with UTI, whoever it may be, then that's a win for us and a win for the industry as a whole. So I'd love to see that. I encourage dealers definitely to build up relationships with their local high schools and trade schools.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joe. Second one, as we move on, because time is ticking and my students will be out of their lunch and ready for class. If there was one easy fix in your mind that dealers could implement today, right now, to improve their recruiting efforts, what would that one thing be?
Sure. And it's funny. People are going to laugh because it sounds really simple, but it should be easy, but it's not easy. And that's availability. We see it a lot with our remote recruiting campaigns where, we need a pretty decent window to get especially these types of candidates. Let's talk about techs or even, a GM, a GSM role, anything that requires a significant degree of experience. That candidate probably is currently working in another job or has other interviews lined up. Their schedule, their window is going to be very small for a dealer or a service manager to say, hey, I can see them for 2 hours on Wednesday. That's not going to cut it. And look, I get it. Everyone's busy. We're all very busy. It's a crazy industry. The hours that we put in this industry to make the whole thing go are significant. But it comes back to, is this a priority for you or is it not a priority? Is how important is human capital to you? How important is this hire to you? How much money are you losing by not optimizing this position or having the right person in this position? So it starts with that mindset of, this is a priority. It doesn't matter what else I have going on. I'll see them whenever you set the appointment for them. I'll meet them at lunchtime if they have to come over on their lunch break because they're not going to take a day off from their current job to come see me.
Right.
And then along those same lines, actually be available. There's a lot of times, we send a candidate in and this problem came up. It's like someone else needs to handle that problem. I don't care if it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You make a valuable candidate for a difficult to fill position sit for 15 to 20 minutes. The best case scenario is they come in, they pay you lip service, they go for the interview, but they've already checked out. They're not going to take that job. You made me wait. I didn't get treated the right way. If this is how you treat me, I can only imagine how you treat customers. I'll pass. So availability is a huge one. And again, it sounds so simple. I understand the challenge, but it's a must.
No, I love it. We need to inspect what we expect because
Exactly.
we forget many times they are watching us. And do I see myself making a career change here? And
Sure.
by their lack of not being on top of it, I don't change my mind. Yeah, you're right. Moving forward,
Yeah.
what do you think dealers can do to help reduce the overwhelming turnover? You had touched on that, but we have sales teams, we have turnover. Some managers actually believe that we accept 100% sales turnover. Anything to throw to that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a loaded question. I know we're short on time, and I hit on a few of them already, just some specifics. With the technicians, obviously, and really all positions, you want to be proactive instead of just saying, throwing that up, we're awesome, come work for us. You got to go tell people why you're awesome, and you got to start the conversation in a lot of cases for a lot of positions. And then we talked about availability is a big one, but really, I think what gets left out, and I guess this isn't technically recruiting, but is the prologue to recruiting, and if you will, the epilogue to recruiting. So the prologue is having a clear, defined, intentional culture and vision for who you want to be as a dealership. And then, of course, going out and finding those people. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts at a dartboard. Or, we talk about not judging a book by its cover. And a lot of people think, oh, appearance. Yeah, of course. But I'm talking about a resume too. You start just typecasting a resume of, they don't have this type of experience, or worse yet, or just as bad, they have the experience I'm looking for, so I'm just going to hire them. What kind of human being are they? Do they align? Do you have a culture, and do they align with that culture and your vision of who you want to be and how you want to treat your customers? So before you can even start to hire the right people, you need to know who you are as a dealership and what you're all about. And then on the back end of it, and again, this is something we talked about before the show, and you talked about the HR side of it and human capital, onboarding, the epilogue. After you find them, you get them in there, you like them. What does the first day look like? Are you sitting them down at a desk with a stack of paper and say, sign all these, and then you throw them out on the floor with, trailing your middling, sales guy or whoever it may be. Yeah. And then what does 1 week look like? What does 1 month look like? Are you checking in with them? Are you continuing to advance them, ask questions, hold them accountable for upholding the things that you believe in as a dealership and the things that you train them to do? So I think retention, obviously a big part of it is effective recruiting, but I think setting up for effective recruiting and then effective onboarding and training have as much to do with it as recruiting.
Outstanding. You said that word accountability. Oh,
yes,
leaders hate to hear that word accountability. But
yes, sir.
One thing with that, and then we'll wind it down. Looking at a study of all sales, whether it's major account, key account, up and down the street, home sales, what they're pretty much saying is that the most crucial part is that day 1 to 90 days. If they don't feel comfortable in that career change, they're gone. What's your experience?
Yeah, and I'd go even more micro than that. I feel like it's hour 1, it's hour 2. It has to be a big deal bringing this person on. They have to feel good right away. When they go home that first day, they need to go to their husband or wife and say, sweetheart, this was my experience today. This is where I need to be. I've been missing out on not being a part of this organization my entire life. And then you're starting on the right foot. Now, obviously, like you said, it's no one's a finely molded, perfect part of your organization just because they're pumped up and you got them ready to go. You got to implement your training procedures and show them how you guys do things. And again, the accountability is huge. And I think part of the reason a lot of managers and leaders don't want to talk about accountability is because then they have to look at themselves and they have to be accountable. So and I think, that's part of, you said, kind of accepting turnover. Well, we can just keep hiring more people. We can just keep hiring more people without thinking of the cost, the time, everything like that. That's just how we've always done it. Well, who's really to blame here? Maybe look inward, hold yourself accountable, and then you can start expecting that from your salespeople, your technicians, whoever it may be within the dealership.
Okay. Now, last thing, just for me, based on what you said, because naturally I'm in a large market in the South here. But from what I read and talk and hear from other people, we still have a tough time a person made a career change, but myself as that middle manager, that desk manager, I interviewed you, told you all these great things, but we're still not doing one-on-ones before shift, after shift, or we're not managing by walking around. Anything you can add to that, or are you finding something different? Or
No, and I think that's a big part of the problem is the sink or swim mentality, and just not checking in with people. And that comes back to the human capital thing, where you might be missing, this person might have something going on in their personal life that is affecting them at work, and you would never know that just from what are their numbers. How many have you talked to today? How many got out this month? How about we sit down, like you said, and we have a conversation with them, Monday morning, and not a sales meeting, a sit down, like you said, a one-on-one. And then, hey, I'm struggling with this. All right, well, let me walk around with you. Let me see what you're doing. Like you said, inspect what you expect and hold yourself accountable and find out what's actually going on with that person. Treat them like a human being and see what they have going on in their life elsewhere. And not just help them sell more cars. And it might sound idealistic, but help them be a better people. Because at the end of the day, or a better person, that's only going to benefit you and benefit the dealership and everyone's bottom line.
Love it, Joe. Love it, Joe. Now, before we let you go, and we do thank you, anything AutoMax has coming up? Anything you want to share to the people that's out there?
Yeah, we're doing some things internally, and we're going to be making some changes to our website, and all of it's in the general vein of bringing more awareness. It's funny, we've been around for 23 years, and because you mentioned Anthony, perfect example, because our trainers and our on-site guys have done such a phenomenal job of branding themselves and letting people know that's who we are as a company. The other stuff kind of falls in the back seat. So the technician recruiting, and then this is an us problem. People will come and say, "Oh, you recruit techs too?" And it's like, "Oh my gosh, what are we doing wrong here? How did they not know that?" So we're going to be rebranding ourselves and letting people know how much of our internal efforts and our revenue stream, our business flow, is based on remote recruiting, not on-site recruiting, but remote recruiting for all those other positions. Those positions that, it's not put up an ad and 30 people come into the dealership and you sort through them. It's more headhunting. It's one-on-one recruiting, proactive stuff, like I mentioned, for the technicians. We do a lot of that, and we're going to work harder here in the coming months to help build our brand and help people realize that.
Outstanding. Website, how can they catch up with you? How can somebody know more?
Yeah, AutoMax Recruiting and Training. It's a mouthful. AutoMaxRecruitingandTraining.com is the website. We're big on social media, though. Most of our communication these days comes via myself on LinkedIn, my dad on LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Feel free to reach out to us. My cell phone number, I'll throw it out there because I love talking to people. I'd much rather talk than do a Facebook message or an email, but I know people get busy. But I'm at 609-705-8646. Any questions at all? I love just talking recruiting. It doesn't even have to be about, how can we help you or how can you pay us to help you? I'm always open for just picking my brain and seeing if we can help you out.
Outstanding, Joe. Could you give the cell phone number one more time? Slow it down.
You bet, man. 609-705-8646.
Outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from one of the best, Joe Lockhart. And once again, AutoMax been around over 20 years. They've had competition come at them, but they're still out on top. And the reason is, you see it, they're always keeping up with the changing times. So hopefully you got something out of it. I want to thank my guest, Joe Lockhart, once again, but I have to get back to class. So Brandon Hardison, as always, in parting, you go out and make it a champion day.